And welcome to Stack Hunters. I'm Bradley Stalder at FF Stalder, but also on the clock. And joining me tonight is Theo Gremminger, our director of content here at Player Profiler. We've done some Bestball drafts together before, but wow, okay. We see Travis Kelce go off. I haven't gotten many shares of Justin Jefferson. I think Jefferson's
just take Justin Jefferson, Bradley. You don't
not
need to
overthinking it. We're not overthinking it. I don't have a lot of shares. Haven't drafted out of the 101 very often here on FFPC. So, I got the 102. Theo's got the 105. And we're live in the FFPC Best Ball streets. And here we go, Theo.
Oh, it just timed me out. Well, that's fine. I had him in the queue anyway. Tyreek Hill, love him at the 105.
Yeah, he's been an easy smash for me in the Best Ball streets at the 105. I think he's comfortably going ahead of the Cooper Kupps and the Austin Ecklers at this point, especially for the wide receiver builds. If you're focusing on, a singular hero RB, or if you're focusing on zero RB, that Tyreek Hill in the mid first round is a pretty easy click.
So I think that there's a case to be made that he could finish as wide receiver 1 overall. It's not a very difficult case to be made. Plus, you get the incredible spike weeks in this sort of a best ball format. The guy's unbelievable. I think he could have 2,000 yards receiving this year in Miami. By all accounts, it looks like he's dominating camp. He feels more comfortable with the offense. And you have to expect the offense will be a little bit better in year 2, even though it was very efficient last year. Tua, hopefully he stays healthy. But year 2 for Mike McDaniel, maybe they put some more wrinkles. And Bradley, he was very unlucky with the touchdown department for having that many targets. He only had 7 touchdown receptions. So, when we talk about, positive regression, that Tyreek Hill needs to be in that conversation, even though he was completely dominant.
I think you need to put $1 in the positive regression jar there, Theo.
No, it's the Matt Kelly does not like the positive regression, term, but it is, it's a good way of looking at things for guys. We want to explain why they're going to bounce back this year. I'll just throw out the word positive regression, Bradley.
Awesome. Yes, Jalen Brout in the chat. Let's go. Pumped to hear Theo's strategy in the FFPC tonight. I know many others are as well. It's a fun time, the FFPC streets. We've done some, as I said, we drafted together a team. 2 months ago, we were able to get Jalen Hurts at the 309 in that draft. I think that was the furthest up until that point that Hurts had fallen. He's now becoming a back end of the round 2 pick sometimes. So we've seen some shifts, and we'll talk about some of the players that are changing, some ADP shifts, and especially how the new free agent running backs have signed, how that's impacting their ADP. But before we get into all of that, a word from Matt Kelly about Rival Fantasy.
Hey, we've got to talk about Rival Fantasy today. Rival Fantasy, they're a huge supporter of everything we do, the podcast channel, the YouTube channel. It's possible because of Rival, and they have an incredible new offer. With promo code PLAYER, you double your deposit up to $200, and you get $25 in bonus bucks. So it's $225 additional to play in NFL preseason. You can do their props on the fantasy book where it's over, under, up to 5 guys. The more over-unders you hit, the higher your payout. And they have their challenges for the community. You can say, hey, I think that player X is going to go over this many fantasy points, and someone takes you up on it. They take the other side. It's great. I love their fantasy bingo, where you can do 5 across, you can do 4 in the corner, black it out, just predicting fantasy points on your favorite players, especially in preseason. The promo code is PLAYER, where they match your deposit up to $200 plus those $25 in bonus bucks. This offer is insane.
That's right. Check out our friends at Rival Fantasy. That's my favorite ad so far, Theo. You want to know why? Because it featured Dwayne McBride. Dwayne McBride, one of my on brand. Unfortunately, it looks like Ty Chandler is poised to be the running back 2 in Minnesota. He seems to have that on lockdown. We haven't heard a lot of rumblings about McBride or any of the other running backs. They have brought in some free agent depth to camp body, take some blows. But I think it's Ty Chandler right now. Are you in agreement there?
Yeah, I think it's Ty Chandler. I have a Hero and Zero RB target and values list article coming out and a little bit of video content with that. And Ty Chandler made it, Bradley. I think that, he's interesting. They are potentially looking at a couple of these veteran running backs. Mike Davis was brought in. So I think that that's kind of an indictment about the depth. Maybe they want to bring in a veteran. But I think at this point in the season, if the season started tomorrow, Ty Chandler is seeing, some work every single week. He looked good catching the football. And, how much volume can Alexander Madison handle? I think Alexander Madison will start the season quite well, but how long he can go is a question mark, because the guy's never really seen that sort of volume. And, I'm skeptical. So we'll see. I think Ty Chandler is he's fine where he's being drafted. But I am interested to see if they're bringing in a Mike Davis. Does that mean that they're also potentially talking to Fournette, Kareem Hunt, some of those backs that we like?
Yeah, we thought Kareem Hunt would sign a couple, like last week. He visited the Colts, he visited the Saints. No deals were done. Instead, it's Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, who are the free agent running backs who are signed. We're going to talk about Rhamondre Stevenson coming up here in just a bit. But Rhamondre he's obviously got the better efficiency metrics. He was a prolific pass catcher last year, but we might be dealing with a different offense where they're not dumping the ball off as much. They might be a little bit more competitive in games, and maybe, just maybe, Ezekiel Elliott gets more converted touchdowns at the goal line than Rhamondre. I've been seeing Stevenson in the underdog streets fall into the back end of the third round, flirting with the top of the fourth. Is that the right amount of fall or reaction to Rhamondre Stevenson?
I think, in terms of like the running back hierarchy, he's still interesting because of the receiving upside. But Bradley, I feel like in the underdog world, it just becomes, when you're staring at Rhamondre Stevenson at that point in the draft, and you have all of those wide receivers. Okay, so I'm going to see who Team BMP Belts takes, because I only have one player in my queue right now, Bradley.
Ooh,
this has been a queue murder.
Look, there have been a lot of great wide receivers. Amon-Ra stuck around until the 2-2 in this draft. A.J. Brown went 2-3. Nick Chubb, kind of surprisingly, went 1-9 there. So that's the 109 has 0 wide receivers through the first 2 picks, Chubb and Mark Andrews. But yeah, it's been a murderer's row of wide receivers.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to happen, because I want to have a Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill build here. I think this might be my second in this tournament with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle as a start, but I still like it a lot. So I'm going to lock it in. Jalen Waddle right here. I love him. The kind of upside I get at the later half of the second round here is incredible with Waddle.
Yeah, that's a nice little stack. You can go some Baltimore later. You can go with Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson, and you also have obviously Tua, and you can build on with Ravens wide receivers for that last game, and it just, those guys are great. They had a 52% combined target share last year. It's incredible, and they haven't really brought in the sort of players that can really take away from that. I think there's a chance that, they add to Waddle's target total. Maybe Tyreek goes down to like 155 and Waddle's goes up, but they're both such incredibly efficient players. I'm excited for this Miami offense.
Yeah,
we love consolidation, Bradley. I know you love it too.
I love it. I think we focused on, I drafted a lot of Miami, Baltimore in these drafts, but also in the underdog streets. So it's been a game I've been targeting. Last time that the Baltimore Ravens and Miami Dolphins played, they combined for 80 points. And so, like, this could be a massive shootout, even if the Ravens have an improved defense. Yeah, give me a lot of Baltimore, Miami in week 17.
The only thing I worry about is, like, I have a bunch of them too. So I know you do. So it's like, that's been a game that so many people are targeting that it's hard to be like, it's really hard to kind of do that because it's going to be so common. It doesn't mean
Right.
it's not right, because I think Baltimore and Miami are both going to be put up a ton of points during the season. And, like we talked about, it's kind of predictable who the players are that are going to be scoring fantasy points for them. Baltimore's got some interesting guys, though. Like one of the FFPC competitors, shout out to Billy Muzio. I'm not saying them by name on this. They talked about how common the Bateman Lamar Jackson stack is. Like,
Yes.
obviously Mandrews and Lamar was very common, but so was the Bateman and Lamar. I think just based on the price point of Bateman, with him being off the field. Now he's back, but with him having injury concerns, he was pushed down. So a lot of Lamar Jackson teams were able to get him. So I don't know. It's very interesting when we start looking this far into the season for those stacks.
Yeah, it's maybe it's Bateman, maybe it's Zay Flowers this year, maybe it's Odell Beckham if he can hold on, stay healthy. But I'm on the clock here, Theo, and there's a flat tier of wide receivers. It's the elite quarterbacks are still hanging out here, and then there's ugliness at the running back position. So this is a real tough spot, but I'm gonna go with Josh Allen at this spot. First quarterback off the board. And unfortunately, it's a tough thing to go at the turn. I'd rather have like the 111, 112 in these types of drafts rather than the 101, 102, because it feels like it flat tiers unless someone really falls off. And now I'm left with, well, should I go with one of the running backs? Should I go with a tight end? And who can lead me to the promised land? Like, it's Buffalo, New England. Maybe I can correlate that way. But as we said, I think that the Rhamondre Stevenson value isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Josh Allen, was a guy that was potentially a Cincinnati Buffalo game being played away from having back-to-back QB1 overall seasons. And now he's the QB3 in almost every single draft. So you're getting slightly unique with the Jefferson Allen, and you're OTC now. So
yeah,
where you at here, Bradley? Oh, Calvin Ridley. Okay.
See, I'm a Calvin Ridley guy. So this is a player that if there's someone who will end up in round 2 as a value, like I could see him paying off into round 2, like the Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. I think he can get into that range pretty comfortably. With the target share, with an ascending Jaguars offense, I'm not worried about. He's not like past the age apex or anything. And he's been a career target hog. I've made my case about Calvin Ridley on other podcasts, but I'm not worried about the year layoff or year and a half layoff. I think that when it comes to dissecting the Calvin Ridley situation, we're concerned about, is his mental state ready or right? And I think that the fresh start in Jacksonville, getting acclimated, like he was good to go back in March, and he's been in training camp, he's lit it up, and he's historically been a 25% target share guy, and we like Trevor Lawrence. So I think that this allows me to be unique. I like Ridley as a wide receiver 2 on a build, and yeah, this is a player that, looking at the rest of the round 3 wide receivers, I'm not overly enthused. Like, it's DK Metcalf if you want, it's Keenan Allen if you want, it's Deebo Samuel if you want. Like, it's dealer's choice at that point. And I'd rather have, an ascending offense with the number 1 wide receiver on it.
The third round is more beat up today than it is yesterday, because you had, the chance of Breece Hall getting healthy with less running back competition behind him and being a fixture by the time we drafted at the end of the month. You also had Rhamondre Stevenson, who was like a very attractive pick in this range. I think 307 for him is going to end up, like, when we look back in a couple days, I think 307 is going to be, a little bit ahead of ADP. It's not bad where he was just taken, but he's a little less safe. So the third round, it happens every year, Bradley, where the third round is just full of potential landmines.
Right.
So for me, it's in managed. It's when you have an opportunity to take an elite quarterback in the third, I feel like it's a little bit more attractive today than it was before. I went T. Higgins. I know you're not crazy about T. Higgins, but I think of him as a guy who's going to have spike weeks, and I love having him as my wide receiver 3. And for me, I have him in that same tier with DK. Keenan Allen, I like a little bit more in managed because I think that the spike weeks are going to be a little less prevalent in these best ball settings, but in managed, I know that I have that expected floor. So I agree with you. I mean, those kind of wide receivers are a little attractive. Jahmyr Gibbs is attractive in the 3rd, and then the quarterbacks are attractive. TJ Hawkinson's interesting. I considered him. He went 1 pick after me. But I wanted to get a 3 wide receiver start. I think I'm going to build on my strength and then kind of I can make up for it a little later in this draft.
Yeah, so someone in the chat asked, why take Josh Allen there at the 211 and not on the way out? He's definitely going Mahomes there every time. And my thought is that honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, I was not going to draft Jonathan Taylor. He was not on my radar at that spot at the 211. And Josh Allen, if he comes back to me, I don't know. There was no tier.
You weren't, you also, Bradley, I think Don has a point, but he has a point on the structural build, but you end up getting your guy Ridley anyway. But that is a good point, Don. Bradley could have, forced the hand of the Mahomes manager, but Ridley was going to be there for you at the 302. Was Ridley always kind of your plan at the 302?
And I was hoping that there would have been maybe someone else who would have fallen in the back end of the 2nd round, but with the flat tier of everyone else, I was just going to make sure I got Josh Allen. I've seen some crazy builds too, where someone went Allen and Mahomes. And so I don't know. Things have gotten wonky. So I wanted to get my guy. I wanted to get Allen at that spot. And I didn't see a real reason why to shift from how the players shook out.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I see Darren Waller going off the board at the 401. Yeah, he's been steaming. I took him there. I took him there in a 350 players championship a couple weeks ago, and then I'm in a slow main event. He went there at the 312, and then he went in the 312 at another slow main event. Like, I think that Darren Waller is heading towards mid-3rd round, and I think that he's getting closer and closer to Hawkinson. A lot of people are digging their heels in and moving Waller ahead of Hawkinson in the industry. You're seeing a lot of pretty sharp people on that train. I mean, I think Waller's gonna have a very, very fun season. I think he could have 130 targets. Where are you at on him, Bradley?
Yeah, that feels. I mean, it's expensive. It's very expensive for a 31-year-old tight end who hasn't been healthy the last couple of years.
Yeah,
and has gotten. We have seen him not be the elite tight end that we saw a couple of years ago. He has been good.
Last year was disaster, and he was still tight end 10 in points per game.
Yes.
So, I agree with you that
I feel it's just very expensive for a player that it's a run first team, low pass volume team where Darren Waller's main target share is going to come from the slot, and they signed all these slot guys, and Daniel Bellinger is not nobody. Like, he's going to be on the field for enough of these snaps to be just annoying enough where, yes, I believe Darren Waller is going to lead the team in targets. I think that he's going to lead the team in receptions, but there's also the upside question. Is Waller going to be able to give you the elite tight end 1 weeks, like tight end 1, 2, 3 weekly finishes that you're drafting him to pay off for at that 4-1? I think there are pathways to failure for Darren Waller that we need to consider as well.
Yeah, I hear you. I think at the end of the day, though, if you're trying to chase upside at the tight end position, you want guys who could lead your team in targets. And I think he would certainly be one that we would I think we would make that bet, Bradley, that he leads all New York Giants in targets this year. Are you on that train?
Yeah, I believe that.
That's half the battle. And I think that he also kind of profiles as a potential red zone threat for them. Okay, so I'm going to be OTC in a moment here.
Yeah, I really like your build so far. If I can just talk about it, you mentioned that I'm not a big fan of T. Higgins, but I'm not a fan of him in the mid-second round. And then you get him in at the 3-5. I think that's a good value. And I also think that, yes, T. Higgins didn't have like elite upside. He didn't have any top 5 weeks last year. He had a 0.6% top 5 rate, but he had a 17% top 10 rate, which was, Stephon Diggs type, Tyreek Hill, type. And so getting him as your wide receiver 3, I think fits really well with your build. You can also go 0 RB. You've got a lot of flexibility attacking this wide receiver position early.
I'm debating Joe Burrow right here. I feel like I kind of lose the edge pushing Burrow right here and not another wide receiver. But I think Joe Burrow is probably the play. I would like, I'm not going to table talk, but I like the Chicago combination with Fields and Moore, but I don't think Moore would come back to me at the 505 or Fields would. So I'm going to lean into the correlation, and I'm going to take Joe Burrow here. I don't love it though, Bradley, but I'm going to do it.
That feels early, Theo.
Yeah, it feels early, but again, I build the correlation with Cincinnati. And I think that if I had pushed around another wide, I think that there's going to be a few players I really like at the 505. But I like Burrow, and I don't think it's crazy early. Like right now,
no, it's
Burrow,
not.
Burrow, he goes like 2 picks later in these drafts. I think he's going at 47 overall. So I took him, just maybe 2 picks ahead of ADP. But again, I get that T. Higgins correlation. There's chances to build on the Bengals stack, kind of in cheaper ways a little bit later. So I feel like I took the foot off the gas a little bit, but I'm not going to hate my build based on a Joe Burrow, T. Higgins connection.
No, I think that that's going to be fine. And then you can push quarterback a little bit with Miami and Tua. So you can focus on, other players, maybe some running backs later or your tight ends. You know the direction of your team, and gosh darn it, I wanted Christian Watson to correlate with Justin Jefferson, and it didn't happen. So that's a tough spot. But I mean, we'll bounce back. We're looking at, some wide receivers here. There are some good ones available. There's also, you mentioned this is an interesting spot to take Fields, but Moore already went off the board.
Yeah, I mean, Watson Judy has been like the age old like argument right now. We actually had a segment about this. Billy and I did, Bradley, about how like they both present upside. They're exactly the same age. They both are in my opinion, the wide receiver to draft in their own offenses. But interested to see who you take right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Travis Etienne. I'm not a huge Etienne stan, but he fell about 7 or 8 spots after ADP. He correlates with Calvin Ridley, and it gives me even more direction with my build, so I can get some Jacksonville later. And
yeah, I don't mind that at all. I mean, you end up with double tapping Jacksonville. Etienne's a little bit beat up right now, but again, you get him almost in the 5th round, so I don't mind that.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with Travis Etienne falling to that spot. And as my running back 1 at the end of the 4th, fine. Maybe we'll anchor a little bit. We'll see if there's any other value. I do like a lot of the round 8, 9, 10, 11 running backs too. And that's been what I've been noticing is a trend of my draft strategy. I've been focusing a lot on wide receivers. So I might just take, there are some real nice wide receivers available at the spot, and I might be able to, we'll see. Maybe I could have taken Christian Kirk and then come back around with Lawrence, but nevertheless, I'm not going to do that. We'll take some Jerry Jeudy as well and get some wide receiver, fill it out. We talked about his upside. The interdivisional matchups could be really nice versus Mahomes versus Justin Herbert, and the Vegas Raiders are going to be bad this year. So there's a lot of interdivisional matchups where the Denver Broncos could be in some big shootouts.
Yeah, I like the pick, Bradley. I think that Trevor Lawrence, pushing him up because you already have double tapped the Jacksonville Jaguars would have been a consideration, but I understand what you did.
Yeah, we'll see if the Christian Kirk drafter will come back around and take him. Maybe the Evan Ingram will. If not, then Trevor Lawrence, I've seen him fall 10, 12 spots in drafts, whether it's on FFPC or other sites. So we'll see if that is an occurrence. And if it is, then Lawrence as a second quarterback, 2 quarterbacks in the first 6 rounds, is a direction we can go. There's also some other stacking that can happen later on, or correlation that might be able to present itself. So Theo, you went Joe Burrow and then Kyle Pitts at tight end.
Yeah, I like Pitts because I feel like taking Pitts here, there's a lot of upside potential. We've already seen him have a 1,000-yard season, and I think that he's going to bounce back this year, Bradley. And to what extent, I'm not sure, but I think him going off the board as tight end 7, I think that's a solid price. I didn't have to reach for him. I took him right around ADP. There's some chance to build on that Chicago Atlanta game stack, which is a kind of a sneaky one, kind of a pivot off of like the Miami Baltimore one. But I like it because structurally, I've done a couple of these entries where I completely punt tight end, and I feel like I'm playing catch up, and it kind of forces my hand in the second half of the draft, where I end up having to have a 4 tight end build, or I'm kind of forcing a 3 tight end build where I'm kind of like taking stabs at that tight end middle class, which there's some guys that we like in that range, but and I know that the hit rates for those guys is far less than kind of these upper level tight ends. So I've already seen it with Kyle Pitts. Like we talked about, it's guys who can lead their team in targets. Pitts still has that in his range of outcomes. And, last year the guy was steamed up to the second round in a format like this. He went in the first round in some of these. And now he's going in the 5th. So I think the market has corrected itself, and I'm happy to have a Pitts share in a tournament setting like this.
Yeah, you talk about consolidated target shares. Drake London and Kyle Pitts combined for about 50% target share last year as well. And yes, we don't expect the Atlanta Falcons to be throwing a ton, but still consolidated target share gives you confidence. And Pitts was out targeting pretty comfortably Drake London before he went down with his injury. The only thing I'm monitoring is how Pitts is recovering from his knee injury. He's still, that's something that has been probably driving down his ADP, or is a reason why he's not being steamed up at this point.
Well, you see him kind of neck and neck with Goddard, and Kittle usually is going ahead of him now because of the concerns. But I think that price is baked in. And again, it's not like I'm going to need points from him week 1 if he's slow out the gate, because this is, again, it's best ball, and I like my ability to draft tight end talent in FFPC. I draft FFPC a lot. So I think it's, for me, I'm drafting for ceiling with Pitts, and I'm drafting like he's going to be healthy. Burrow has slight injury concerns as well, but I think that's why I was able to get a Burrow Pitts in the 4th round.
Yeah, Burrow Pitts in the 4th round. Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence both did go off in round 5. Lawrence to the Rhamondre and Najee Harris drafter at the 107 drafter.
It starts getting a little interesting. The 6th round is very running back heavy. It's just like the nature of the beast right now that we've seen, so much wide receiver enthusiasm that, if you're a structural drafter right now, you're going to like your opportunities in the 6th round at the running back position. Usually it's a range where in historical seasons it's a very dead zone, but I can paint a picture for like 5-6 guys. They're on the board right now as guys that I wouldn't mind adding. So I know I have a few running back selections coming up. That being said, there's also a couple of these high upside wide receivers that I could kind of push up.
Yeah, I wonder if, we're literally looking at 8 straight running backs versus ADP that are available in the general queue. So, and a bunch of them have been steamed up. We've seen one of them, Javonte Williams, come back from the injury. Theo, are you believing that Javonte Williams is actually healthy, or is this just Sean Payton giving positive buzz to his lead running back?
I think he's healthy. I think that the fear is that there is more of a split than Javonte Williams drafters want, with P. Ryan kind of seeing some of those high value touches. But I mean, I was drafting Williams when he was in the 8th round. I have a Javonte Williams 8th round main event share, which could be really, really nice. There goes Rachaad White. That was one of the guys that I had in my queue. I might push running back here, Bradley. I might just not dive in on it, because there's a couple of guys I really like here. And Miles Sanders, we have any update on the potential injury there?
He's still questionable. He has a strained groin. Chuba Hubbard has been getting a lot of work even before Miles Sanders was injured. Chuba Hubbard was splitting 50-50 per Cody Carpentier. So this is a situation that I've been really avoiding.
I saw Cody on that one. Cody knows his stuff on that sort of thing, but based on the contract they gave Sanders, like, I like Chuba Hubbard. He's in my article, but if Miles Sanders was completely healthy, I'd consider him here. I just feel like it's a completely foot off the gas type pick.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of running backs that might fall to me in the next round, and I am going to go ahead and I'm going to push up a wide receiver here.
Let's go.
I think I'm going to get a little unique, and I'm going to push up. Actually, I'm having second thoughts, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push up George Pickens, and I'm going to get Pickens in here as my wide receiver 4, who I think is going to have some spike weeks, and it's an easy opportunity for me to build a little extra correlation if I want to, dive into Pickett and some of these other Pittsburgh pieces. Freiermuth.
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens, 35% of the time last year was a flex play for your best ball leagues. I mean, as a rookie, that was in the same range as, it was the same as Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. That was a really nice floor for George Pickens. So now
I feel like I influenced the next 2 picks too, Bradley, by doing that.
Yeah, look at you, ADP influencer.
That's it. I forced the board to go Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was my other consideration. So I think I'm more likely going to get one of these running backs coming back to me at the 705, but also if there's a complete wide receiver steam, I might dive back into wide receiver. You have to kind of read the board here in the 6-7 turn. Yeah,
I'm also going to push running back. I'm going to get the stack with Gabe Davis. That was he's a player I've been taking a lot of. Yeah, he double tapped running back there. Damian Pierce, Javonte Williams. That was nice. And then we're also going to go with my second running back, James Cook, to stack.
Nice play. I like that. I had James Cook in my tier. I think it's kind of wishful thinking that he would have been there at the 705, but I do like him a great deal.
Yeah, so I've been warming up a little bit, but I've also been taking some late Latavius Murray, Theo.
I know. You're a meme now. You've turned yourself into a meme. You're a Latavius Murray backer.
Latavius Murray was running back 8 last year in PFF rushing grade behind a terrible offensive line for Denver. And at 33 years old, he was playing splitsies with Damian Harris in camp, and he had better underlying metrics last year. So I think there are worse last round picks than Latavius Murray this year.
So for me right here, Bradley, I did want Cam Akers. I considered him last pick when I took Pickens. This becomes an interesting pick for me.
Well, we saw Dalvin Cook just go off,
which I think is fine. You get the head start with Dalvin Cook. For me, I'm going to dive right back into wide receiver, and I'm going to take a high upside play with Jahan Dotson and push him up. Draft him.
Interesting that you passed on the correlation of Tyler Lockett there, because Lockett's not going to come back to you.
Yeah, I'm into Tyler Lockett, but I think that this is going to be an interesting season for him. I'm not as bullish on him as some people. I think he's fine. I would prefer him in a redraft setting. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
So with regard to your Jahan Dotson, I love the pick as well from its on its own, because last year Jahan Dotson had a 30.5% rate of top 18 weeks. Terry McLaurin only had a 20% rate. So this is a higher floor guy, almost a higher ceiling than Terry McLaurin as well. Now we have questions at the quarterback position of who is he going to favor. McLaurin has historically commanded 23-25% target share, but Dotson's also an ascending piece, first round pedigree. So, and we like Jahan Dotson, and I think it's a good value. So he's going to fill in a nice little floor with your spike week wide receivers at the top of your draft.
Yeah, I'm big into Jahan Dotson. I think Jahan Dotson is a stud. And I think that the volume is going to go way up for him this year. It's year 2. You have Eric Bieniemy. I think that Curtis Samuel could be a little bit annoying for both McLaurin and Dotson, but I mean, they have some issues at tight end right now. Although Cole Turner made a couple of plays in that preseason, but Logan Thomas is banged up. But I like a couple of these pieces from Washington. I think everything's kind of pushed down because people have some question marks about Sam Howell now. I actually think Sam Howell is going to be fine for fantasy. I don't know how he's going to be as a winning quarterback in the NFL. And I do think that there's a chance that he concedes the job to Jacoby Brissett during the season if Washington, starts off slow. But I do think that Sam Howell is the kind of guy that can, help, elevate some of these wide receivers. And, Dotson, people love to kind of pick holes on his game because he scored so many touchdowns. It's a ridiculous, ridiculous time of year, Bradley, where people just want to, criticize Christian Watson and Jahan Dotson because they're unsustainable. I mean, listen, getting in the end zone is a good thing. We don't need to kind of overthink these things in football. Certainly his touchdown rate will go down, but I think he's going to make up for it with, the targets going way, way up.
Yeah, I love Dotson. You mentioned Christian Watson. One of my pieces of content that's coming out is league winners, and I picked a league winner as Christian Watson this year. He's a player that I'm very big on, high-end wide receiver too, and I was ticked earlier that I did not get him at the 411. But
thanks a lot, Bradley, because I was considering having him be my league winner, but I can't have the same league winner as you on the video content. So I'm going to have to find a new league winner because of Bradley. But I think Christian Watson, like Scott Barrett came on press coverage. I highly recommend Scott's work. I think he's super, super sharp. And he's all over Watson. Billy likes him. You like him. I like him. I mean, sometimes we've got to step back and just use our eyes and look at, and I sound like a meathead here. I like analytics, Bradley.
You sound like Billy Muzio here.
No, but I think certain times you need to take a step back and watch the film. Yes. And Christian Watson is like one of these guys that everyone in the NFL secondary is fast, but Christian Watson runs away from people, and he's big and strong and physical. And his competition for targets at the wide receiver spot are another second-year player in Romeo Doubs and a first-year player in Jaden Reed. And then I like Luke Musgrave, and you like Luke Musgrave, Bradley, but Luke Musgrave is not going to come in and have a commanding target total. He's going to be a kind of a touchdown. He's going to be in a perfect world, Luke Musgrave is kind of like a Gerald Everett outcome this year, a guy who's going to build his season on touchdowns and a couple of spike weeks here and there. So, and Bradley, I'll say this, there's a chance that Aaron Jones takes a step back this year. He's older, and he does not have Aaron Rodgers in the fold. So we don't know Jordan Love's propensity for checking down and kind of elevating Aaron Jones. So to me, Christian Watson, if I'm an NFL offensive coordinator, I'm scheming to get him the ball. I think he's an incredibly explosive talent, and I'm hoping that there's a certain level of tunnel vision from Jordan Love to him when, things are going his way. And I think he's going to get double teamed. I think he's going to be the focus of the defense. I think that's a fear, but drafting talented players that get schemed for, that's the name of the game, right?
Yeah, and we're in the best ball streets, and we want the high upside, great athletes. This is a player, Christian Watson last year had a 2.4 yards per route run. That was 12th among all wide receivers, 12th as a rookie. But let's take a step back. He missed a 75-yard touchdown on that first play. You add that yardage together, it's 2.52. That gets him into the elite of elite company. He just dropped one. Of all of the targets, he only had one other drop the entire season. So this is a player that it was just a fluke. He has elite upside, and to get him at the back end of the 4th round is an absolute smash. And so we like Dotson. We like Christian Watson. And now we're getting into probably some of the rookies that are coming off the board. We just saw Jordan Addison. I was maybe hoping he would fall a little bit, but he's been getting steamed up at camp by the Minnesota Vikings. He's already pegged himself as the third in the depth chart, but he'll quickly become the second in this Minnesota depth chart. And I expect that we're going to get four receivers on this team, including TJ Hawkinson. They get 100+ targets. So, and Addison's among those players. I like him back in round 7, even in round 8.
Yeah, I like Addison a lot. And I think that it's the NFL lies a lot on these depth charts, and they make these younger players earn it. Jordan Addison's a stud. He's great value right there in the 8th. I've taken him in the 7th, but I have been drafting him in the 8th like multiple times in FFPC formats. I think you'll see his ADP rise a little bit as the month moves on. When we get to the holiday weekend, I think people are going to be a little bit more comfortable with him. But there's a lot to like Bradley. If he just sees Adam Thielen's routes run, then it's going to be a smash season for him. I think he could finish legitimately inside of the wide receiver 2 line, and you got him, in the 8th round.
Yeah, wide receiver 24, given the pass volume of the Minnesota Vikings, the Vikings and the Chargers are going to be among the top not only pass rate, but pass volume teams in the NFL, and we want pieces of that. You mentioned if Addison just steps into the Adam Thielen role, that could be a buoy for your fantasy teams. And we're looking at structure here. Let's take a moment and focus on the structures you've had so far, Theo. You started with Tyreek Hill, went Jalen Waddle, so you have the Miami correlation. You got T. Higgins as your wide receiver 3, stacked him with Burrow at the end of round 4. Then you went Kyle Pitts to fill out the tight end spot. You've been hammering wide receiver. You have no running backs. You pushed running back, and you were still enamored by Jahan Dotson. Is running back on your radar for this pick that's coming up here in just a moment?
Yeah, so for me, there's a few running backs I like right here. Treylon Burks was in the queue as well as another wide receiver consideration, but it's kind of a question mark here, Bradley. If I want to add to the Miami stack with Tua, this is the pick to make him, because I don't think he'll last to 905. Where are you at, Bradley, on that? Do you think he wraps around for me?
He might.
He might go to the stack hunters at late 11, or So I'm gonna roll the dice once again, and I'm gonna be able to shut it down. I'm gonna shut it down at quarterback with Tua, and I'll be able to do a 2 quarterback build here while other people are chasing quarterback 2 and quarterback 3, and I will have Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, and there we go. Tua Tagovailoa in the 8th. I pushed him up a little bit to get the stack.
I don't hate it. I think he would have come back around. I wouldn't have taken him at that spot. But speaking of double quarterbacks, Theo, we've got a question in the chat. Faux outrage. Why does Team 4 take 2 early quarterbacks and send one of their top 5 picks to the bench each week? I do get the more fields stack, but this seems suboptimal overall.
So I'll take this one, Bradley, because I used to think this was the biggest square fish move that you could do.
Right.
But our friends at Fantasy Mojo, Darren Armani, has actually tracked the win rates on 2 quarterback builds in this format with the FFPC. The 2 early quarterback build actually hits better than you would think. This is a best ball thing, obviously, but there's something about the build with a Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, where I don't necessarily hate it. I would encourage you to kind of check out Fantasy Mojo's work, because he can explain it a lot better than I have. Will ask him that. He's going to be on with us for First Class Fantasy 3:30 on Thursday, and I'm going to make sure and ask him about that, because win rates are kind of his thing, and sometimes the ugly double taps of the position in these are slim best balls. So a traditional best ball would be like a 28 rounder, but these, Bradley, used to be like an 18 rounder. Now they're a 20 rounder. But in a 20 round best ball, the 2 early quarterback strategy actually has decent win rates.
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of the early quarterback. I don't know if I would have gone like that early with 2 of the 5, but we saw last year with the win rates are very high, but there are also some millionaire winners who drafted Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow on the same team, and you just see quarterback fall at that spot, and you take advantage of the spike weeks that exist. So for quarterback who scores, yes, it's PPR, so like the relative scoring, positional scoring is not as high for quarterbacks as it is in, let's say, half PPR scoring. But still, on the bye weeks, if you hit the nuts on the bye week that your quarterback went off, then that puts you at an advantage over competitors in your league. Like we know what kind of upside these quarterbacks can have, and if he goes off during the week that your other starter went off, then that's a massive shift for you.
Yeah, and here you go, Bradley, your OTC. Why don't you talk it out?
I know. So there are 2 players I'm considering. I'm considering Pacheco because of the ADP value, but I'm also considering Kirk Cousins to stack. So those
How
are
many
the
Vikings are you at? Let me see.
I'm just at Jefferson, and I'm happy with ETN, James Cook, AJ Dillon. So I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins right now.
You took Addison as well, right?
No, I didn't take Addison.
Okay, sorry about that. I misread that.
It's okay. I still went Cousins there at that spot. He wasn't going to come back around to me, and I missed out on Trevor Lawrence by trying to push quarterback anyways, and that's a fine at ADP value. And I've got Minnesota Green Bay correlation with the AJ Dillon selection earlier. That's what I was thinking with Dillon at that spot. We also mentioned that there may be ambiguity with the running backs, how they're going to be deployed. I mean, AJ Dillon was a 2nd-round pick. He's played solidly behind Aaron Jones, but Jones is on the last year of his contract. He had to renegotiate. The Packers were going to cut him if he didn't renegotiate his contract. And Dillon has been a goal line monster. That's why we were kind of upset at how Aaron Jones didn't get the goal line work. And I think that, yes, we usually say, oh, touchdown regression is in the works for Aaron Jones. I'm not as sure about this situation, given the role that AJ Dillon has, the uncertainty of the offense, and just what AJ Dillon has done over the last few years. He's been a consistent contributor. So getting him at the 8-11, where he could usurp Aaron Jones this season, for the Packers to find out if they want to extend Dillon even further. This is a player that I've been drafting a little bit more at the back end of the 8th round, beginning of the 9th round.
Yeah, I like Dillon. I think he's fine this year. And I talked about, again, I don't dislike Aaron Jones. I know Billy's big on him, but I think there's a chance. Like, Dillon's had very predictable volume the past 2 seasons. His problem last year, Bradley, is he was drafted in the 5th round and he kind of disappointed. He also started the season out very slowly, but he finished the season very strongly. So I like him. Like, I think LaFleur uses him. I think that's a safe bet. And again, Aaron Jones has been very fortunate with his, injuries the last 2 seasons. He's been on the field for the majority of the time, and he certainly produced big time. But again, when these running backs start getting a little bit older and we have a quarterback change, things can happen. And I think that Dillon, he's certainly never going to be like a Derrick Henry, where, people wanted him to take this massive step forward. But I do think that he's got contingent upside if Jones goes down, and he's got usage upside if Green Bay, wants to lean into the running game a little bit more this year to protect the young quarterback.
I'm in on AJ Dillon at that. So, and then getting Kirk Cousins for the stack, it fits. You went Antonio Gibson, some Washington correlation with Jahan Dotson. It was interesting the first couple preseason games, Brian Robinson running almost the same amount of routes. I wonder if it's more of just getting reps than anything. I'm not sounding the sirens out of worried that Antonio Gibson's 3rd down role is going to go away, but I maybe that's just more confidence in Brian Robinson, not so much taking away anything from Antonio Gibson, because Gibson, he's a receiving back. He can also handle a lot of touches rushing the ball. But I know that he's dealt with injuries, and maybe it's that they want to conserve some touches. So I'm happy with the Antonio Gibson pick there in the middle of round 9.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he could simply be in the Jerick McKinnon role in this offense. And Antonio Gibson's never averaged less than 11 points per game in any season in his career. He averaged 11 last year. He gave you 2 14-plus point per season games. He's had double-digit touchdowns twice in his career. And I think last year, Ron Rivera and Scott Turner were not into him. He sounds like a player who really is into the coaching staff now and kind of into his role. I mean, rewind a year ago, Bradley, and we were talking about like him being a special teams player, and it seems like they were kind of throwing him under the bus.
Right.
And then, the off the field incident with Brian Robinson where he missed his time, Gibson gave you a number of usable weeks. So, listen, I here in the 9th round, there's always going to be slight question marks on the running backs, but I think Gibson is, like you said, a guy who can catch the ball, a guy who's given us fantasy success in the past, and I trust the offensive coordinator that he's going to get the ball in the correct player's hands. And I also built on the Dotson stack. So if there's a chance that I think I have the number 2 and number 3 target earners in Washington this year behind McLaurin, and I think there's a chance Dotson could lead them in targets.
I'm here for that. An interesting selection happened right after yours, Theo, and that was Khalil Herbert at running back 34. He's been reportedly the running back 1, running with the ones consistently. He pulled off a big preseason, big 50-yard touchdown play. I think that this is a little heavy on the steam, but obviously we got to stay on brand with Roschon Johnson being the player profiler, guy who's also getting some first team touches. But Khalil Herbert has a realistic chance of being the RB1 to start the season. And at RB34, we saw last year, there was a week where David Montgomery left early and Khalil Herbert was still the running back 1 overall. So how are you deciphering the shift of Khalil Herbert and this Bears backfield?
I think Khalil Herbert is fine here. The 9th and the 10th round is going to be kind of a pick your favorite here, Bradley. I feel like there's ADP is what it is, but I think when you're talking about trying to measure out the AJ Dillons versus the Khalil Herberts versus the Antonio Gibsons versus the Brian Robinson types, a little bit it's going to be personal preference. Khalil Herbert, people love seeing him score that long touchdown in the preseason game, and that shouldn't really move the needle, but it is nice to see guys produce, when they're with the first team offense. And Herbert's not a guy that we have really questioned his talent. It's really been the opportunity. Last year, the Bears also had 11 games where their running backs finished inside the RB2 line, despite, being one of the, bottom 10 offenses in points per game. So I think that taking shots on ambiguous backfields is a great way to find fantasy wins at ADP. And if Herbert's your guy, go take him. If Roschon's your guy, go take him. I'm honestly not sure if the Bears coaching staff even knows how this backfield's going to go, but I think one of the two could run away with it. And I think that there's a chance that if there's any sort of attrition that, when the backfield touches become a little more consolidated, one of those guys could be very, very useful. So I have in my Zero and Hero RB article that's coming out the Chicago backfield as one of the ambiguous ones that I'm encouraging people to take a shot at and even double tap, because right now you can take Roschon and Herbert, and they're both going in a range where double tapping will not hurt you.
Yeah, they're super inexpensive, and with Fields, we know that running backs have high efficiency with rushing quarterbacks, and we saw it even last year. You mentioned, how many games, 11 games where they finished as running back 2 or running back 2 line or better. That's a product of teams having to play the run for both the quarterback and a good enough running back, room. They're not elite talents, but they're good enough to make the magic happen behind the offensive line and to keep defenses honest. So we'll see what can come out of the Chicago Bears. But I agree with you. That's a team that I've been leaning into a lot of the ambiguity as well, taking 140s, 150s, Roshan Johnson, and taking some Khalil Herbert as well.
Man, Bradley, I have two potential correlation plays coming up here at the 10:08 with double tapping the Washington running back situation, which I'm not grossed out by, because I think that those guys, I think both those guys are going to have, solid weekly results, and I won't have to guess in a best ball setting. And then I also have I don't want to do too much table talking here. I have a guy.
We are live streaming, Theo. Usually we record these. And then we can table talk. But
I have one of my favorite on-brand guys here, Bradley, and I feel like I would be taking from your beautiful stack you're building. So I might be costing the Stalder family $200,000 if I take him here.
Look, Theo, you can. Let's see. You can correlate with Cole Kmet. I think that would be a great piece of your build. You haven't gone tight.
I really don't want to snipe you, but I feel like Dalton Kincaid
looked
here
really nice here.
McKinnon looks nice. There's a couple of running backs, but
Brian Robinson, the double tapping of Washington could be a real nice spot for you.
I think I got to do it, Bradley. I don't think that there's a better upside play here than Dalton Kincaid as my tight end 2 in the 10th round here. I'm doing it. I'm sorry, Bradley. I'm sorry to the Stalder family.
Billy is, did you hear? Billy has given the go-ahead for Theo to launch his new podcast called Snipe Hunters.
Yeah, listen, this was not a snipe. This was me taking the best value. This is not some lesson I'm trying to send at Bradley. And you can feel free to snipe
Theo's
me.
flexing his best ball muscles.
No. Listen, everyone. This Bradley's a good friend of mine. I don't want to do it to him, but at the end of the day, Dalton Kincaid is one of my guys.
He is one of your guys, and he would have been the selection for me at that spot. Unfortunately,
I think this is a good spot for him. I don't think he should be going this far apart from kind of the Dalton Schultz, Tyler Higbee tier, which those guys I think have more predictable in terms of targets, but in terms of spike weeks, Dalton Kincaid's going to have a couple of them. So I like getting him there. He doesn't have him and Pitts together. It's a dynasty tight end premium manager's dream right there.
Yeah, look, now I'm on the clock. I'm at a 1, 2. Well, I've got 4 wide receivers, 3 running backs. I haven't hit tight end yet. What, Theo?
I'm laughing at this comment. Bradley, has anyone ever told you at a glance you look like Russell Wilson?
Theo finally looks at all the comments.
That's great. Yeah, shout out to Don F. Shout out to my man MP from Germany.
That's excellent.
MP in the chat. Very good drafter from Germany. I believe Munich, Germany. MP, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, this is an ugly tier, Theo. This is a real ugly tier. But I think we're gonna go with your boy, Devon Achane.
So we sniped each other, and I think that we both identified.
I did not do that to snipe you, for what it's worth as well.
Oh, I completely understand.
But I've been taking a lot of double tapping of Charbonnet and Achane in these rounds, especially because we saw what Miami did with the split backfield last year. Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert both had multiple games where not only did they score double-digit fantasy points, but they also, both of them scored double-digit fantasy points in the same game. So if Achane can carve out a significant role, ahead of a 28-year-old Jeff Wilson and a 32-year-old Raheem Mostert, Achane in the 10th round on a Miami offense, that there's a lot of upside. I think you were trying to talk me into Achane in like the 8th or 9th round in previous drafts, like 2 months ago.
I'm still very much in on Achane, and I think that
so
the whole
end of 10th round is nice.
It's great, and I think that I'm in a slow main event with Bip Mandel, who's a really, really good FFPC player, and we took Achane. I believe we took him in the 9th round, and I think that there's a lot of concern about the fact that, he played gunner and, he wasn't with obviously Wilson and Mostert are way ahead of him. I do not buy into the whole Salvon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin
No.
thing. I think that's ridiculous. But A-Chain, very much like Tyler Allgeier, very much like Rachaad White. We see a lot of these guys that kind of Bradley like that make an impact fantasy wise. They don't do it to start the year. The coaching staff looks at them as the kind of guy that I want to change things up. Maybe there's an injury in the backfield. But I think at the end of the day, Devon A-Chain is a special talent, and I think it's a matter of time before he gets weekly usage. So I'm into him. I have a few running backs on the board here that I like for my build as well.
I went Tyler Allgeier. I've been drafting a lot of Allgeier. He's got the contingent upside, but I've already talked with you, Theo, about my thoughts of how the year is going to start, and it's going to be 65%, 70% Bijan, but Allgeier isn't going to fall to a 0. Like, they're going to give Tyler Allgeier, who played very well last year, is one of the top yards after contact per attempt, one of the top PFF rush grade players last year, and had over 1,000 rushing yards, which doesn't matter to us very much for fantasy, but it does matter for the counting stats coaches, and so Tyler Allgeier is a player that I've been drafting a lot of. He has the contingent upside. If Bijan goes down, we know that it's going to be Tyler Allgeier, a solid running back too. And I like the talent of Allgeier. I'm not saying, I've only drafted Bijan when he's fallen to round 2, and he has fallen to round 2 in some spots, but Allgeier is more of my flip on that.
I mean, to me, I see Allgeier as a guy who's, I don't know how valuable his touches are going to be, because I feel like he's going to be a change of pace back in that offense. They'll use him between the tackles. Obviously, I think that the running back targets are going to go to Bijan Robinson, and you also have kind of the annoying presence of Cordero Patterson, who's going to get some touches. So, to me, I had Tyler Allgeier in my article that's coming out because I think he's clearly one of the better handcuff backs in the league. He showed what he could do last year, and they also have moved Cordero to wide receiver predominantly. So I don't mind it, Bradley. I just think at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to have as many usable weeks out of him as maybe a couple of these other running backs that are, I think, have a little bit higher upside kind of right behind him in this similar range. So, but I mean, he's obviously shown his talent. He beat ADP last year as a 5th round guy and ran for the most rushing yards in Atlanta Falcons history by a rookie. So, you're drafted a guy who's shown it on the NFL field. But I think we kind of have a somewhat argument over just how much usage he's going to get. But hey, we'll find out real soon, won't we?
We will. And I keep leaning into the fact that we hate Arthur Smith for fantasy. Like, we've been so annoyed by him over the course of the last couple of years with Kyle Pitts and with Drake London. I'm concerned that he's still not going to be able to put it all together for us fantasy managers. So maybe that's just the distrust overall of the coaching staff to deploy what we hope to be the most optimal fantasy scoring opportunities for us, whether it is for Bijan or whether it's targets to Pitts and to London. So those are, like, I'm taking Pitts, for instance, when he's fallen, and I'm taking London when he's fallen. Like, I got London at 53rd overall today, which is a good value, but it's one of those where I'm leaning into, we just don't trust the coaching staff to be logical, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I will say, like, Arthur Smith, his first year in Atlanta was like a little bit better. Like, when he had Matt Ryan behind center, they had over 500 pass attempts. And I will say, Bradley, he does know what he's doing with running backs. Like, he gets running back production. Last year, I think I was as angry as anybody, but I think we could kind of give him a little bit of a mulligan because Marcus Mariota is just kind of garbage.
Well, he made Cordero Patterson like a fantasy thing, like out of nowhere. Like, he's the savant, when it comes to identifying that. And I think Bijan is going to be a great player for you for fantasy. But I think we thought that Kyle Pitts, put up nice metrics, the air yards, attempted air yards, and the target shares. But is it going to come all together this year? I'm skeptical from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some question marks for sure. But I think at the end of the day, it's year 3 for him. This is a big year. They can win the division. And we certainly like some of the talent on the offense. We love Bijan. I think Drake London and Kyle Pitts are very, very talented guys. So we'll see. We'll see, Bradley. I think we could give him a pass, as long as he keeps things like super consolidated and you get an ADP win out of your Tyler Allgeier pick here, big hat tip to Arthur Smith.
Well, Theo, we saw 2 other running backs go off the board at the end of the 11th round that had not been going in the 11th round for most of the season, and that's Ezekiel Elliott and Kenneth Gainwell. Obviously, Zeke signs with the New England Patriots. He's going to be the between the tackles thumper, goal line option we project. We kind of hit on this already with Rhamondre Stevenson. I've seen Stevenson fall at the end of the 3rd, sometimes beginning of the 4th in drafts I've been doing over the last couple of days or just over the last day. But Kenny Gainwell is at the 11-12 turn for this draft, or probably won't be coming back in round 13. But Gainwell's been getting a lot of steam. He's been running with the ones. DeAndre Swift has been getting pushed down. We saw him fall in this draft. How much are you buying into the Kenneth Gainwell hype and the DeAndre Swift snuffing?
So I still prefer DeAndre Swift. I think DeAndre Swift is a better player than Kenneth Gainwell. I think that there's outs for Kenneth Gainwell, though, Bradley. The coaching staff has familiarity with him. They clearly like him a lot. I don't buy into the whole Swift and Penny played, so therefore Gainwell is ahead. I think it was a veterans deference thing, and they wanted the newer running backs to get usage. And Swift just played very sparingly too. He just got a couple of snaps essentially under his belt. So I'm still on Swift, but like in redraft, I've been double tapping Swift and Gainwell all off season. I think it's kind of been the way I've played it. Obviously, I took Penny tonight, but I think that the double tap of Gainwell and Swift is a really nice way to play this Philadelphia backfield. If they are going to increase the targets to the running back position, I think it'll be one of the two. Okay, I'm OTC here.
You are, and I was hoping that Gerald Everett would have come back to me, but that didn't happen on this.
I think I'm going to lean into... I think the pick for me, there's a few guys that are kind of a safer pick, but I think to catch up at running back here, I am going to lean into Roschon Johnson. I think it's fine value where I'm taking him.
Yeah,
I would have taken I would have taken a different pick, but the Kincaid kind of position, like there's a couple tight ends that are interesting, but the Kincaid one kind of pushed me off of it. So I'm gonna take Roschon Johnson here and try to play a little bit of catch up at running back with an upside guy that I think could have some very nice weeks.
Yeah, this is a player we've discussed already, but he's already getting special team work as a rookie. It's good that rookies get special team work, because that means the coaches want them to practice with the ball in their hands and to see them handle open field. And it's another opportunity for them to get onto the field even. So a player who pushes himself onto the field, whether it's as a punt returner or kick returner that rookie year, that's a good sign. Usually when we get into like year 2, year 3, year 4, and these players who have broken out are punt returning and kick returning, that's a red flag, like the Antonio Gibson note from last year. But Roschon Johnson getting the punt and kick returning, I think that's a good thing for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Khalil Herbert as well, but I think that there's if they want to be a little bit more diverse as an offense, I think Roschon Johnson is the best receiver among the 3 running backs. There's been fine reports about his pass blocking, and this is a player that this coaching staff drafted. Khalil Herbert, they inherited. They went out and signed Deonta Foreman, and they drafted Roschon Johnson. So, again, there's a lot of things to like about him. We believe in his talent. I know Matt is really, really big into him. I like him, but again, I'm not anti-Herbert. I'm not trying to dissuade people. I think Herbert's a fine value too. It's an offense that we want pieces of, and I think they're kind of easy to get when you get past the Fields. Like if Fields and DJ Moore really, really hit, then I think by definition the running backs are going to go up higher as well. And kind of there is a chance that this could be the offense that supports multiple ADP winners. So I'm in on Chicago right now. I think Eberflus was a guy we thought was an idiot when he first started because their team wasn't scoring. But now that Eberflus guy, he looks like he knows what he's doing, Bradley.
He does look like he has pieces in place to put Fields into a successful position. They traded for DJ Moore. They got offensive line help. They picked up Tunyon as a depth piece. And I'm going to go Greg Dulcich here. He fell about 2 rounds. And I know that there's been some love for Adam Troutman. I get it. It's partly correlation, partly ADP value. I also needed tight end. But yeah, Greg Dulcich is here for me in the end of the 12th round.
Yeah, I mean,
3.
I think he's fine. I worry a little bit more about him in redraft if this is going to kind of be the usage. I saw a question in the chat about Cole Kmet and Dulcich in the same tier. I think they are probably in the same tier. But again, Kmet is going to be a safer bet for weekly usage. I think in when the game flow is going in Dulcich's direction, and we have neutral game scripts or Denver is trying to play catch up, I think Dulcich will be very useful. But I do think in like base packages, we might see a little more Troutman than we want. I believe in Dulcich's talent, but again, can he be an every snap player? I don't think so. But Bradley doesn't need it. He just needs the spike weeks for this build.
I do need the spike weeks. And unfortunately, Theo, I'm kicking myself because one of the things that I forgot was that Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins have bye week 13. The bye week boogeyman bit me again. You remember the 2 months
I do
ago?
I do remember. We had a beautiful 2 QB build, and we had to go in and dive in and take a third because of our mistake. Sometimes you get the enthusiasm and you don't look at the bye weeks. It's very important.
No, but it still sticks with my stack. So I've got Russ, Judy, and Greg Dulcich. I've got Cousins and Jefferson, and I've got Josh Allen, James Cook, and Gabriel Davis. So I've got some stacking happening. Maybe we can take some late round correlation as well as we're going through the draft here.
So I'm somewhat open with who I could take here. I don't feel as scared at running back because I was able to triple tap it. I still probably should go running back. I think Elijah Mitchell, he's been a little bit banged up and he's missed a lot of games in his career. But he's kind of attractive in the 13th round. I think that the move, though, Bradley, is to lean into this Miami backfield situation. I know Jeff Wilson took a little knock, but it doesn't sound like anything serious. I am going to take Jeff. You know what? I'm actually going to pivot here, Bradley.
Do it.
I'm gonna do an on the clock pivot, and I'm going to lean into my Cincinnati Bengals stack, and I'm going to take Irv Smith.
Let's go.
Tight end 3. I'm done at tight end. Everybody enjoy themselves. I'm done at quarterback, done at tight end.
Your bye weeks aren't overlapping.
No, I'm all right. I'm done. Completely done. Tight end. I have 3 tight ends, and that's good enough for me, Bradley, with this build.
No, I like the Irv Smith spike week potential. We saw him be a touchdown red zone monster when he was in Minnesota. It was kind of annoying even from time to time because I was a Tyler Conklin guy, and Conklin wasn't getting the touchdowns. He was just getting between the 20s work, mostly in Minnesota. So I don't mind the Irv Smith as a touchdown upside guy stacking, and this is about the right spot for Irv Smith anyways.
Yep.
Kyle asked in the chat, Irv Smith over Michael Mayer.
It depends on what you're trying to do. I think Mayer is a little bit beat up right now. He's a guy that we like. I think Kyle right now, if you want Michael Mayer, you can wait a lot longer. There's a lack of enthusiasm. I mean, if you play underdog, Michael Mayer goes in the 18th round. And I think like a lot of when you play best ball at FFPC, assume most of these players are playing underdog as well. There's a lot of like best ball drafters seem to kind of migrate to the same places. And I think that Michael Mayer's been pushed down. I also think that there's a lack of enthusiasm for the Raiders offense in general. Whereas the Bengals people really want parts of it. So I don't think you have to make that decision, Kyle. If you're big on Mayer, then make him part of your late round strategy. I mean, Bradley, where would we predict he goes in this draft? I would say like the 16th round, 15th round.
Yeah, I think that's
16th?
about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Michael Mayer is getting pushed down due to the injury, and he'll start 40-60 with Austin Hooper. OJ Howard isn't there, so at least there's not another camp body. But Michael Mayer, he should be the tight end 2 on the team. But by the end of the season, you're expecting Mayer to be the tight end 1 on the team.
Yeah, I mean, his path is like we've seen. Like we had the big season for Kyle Pitts as a rookie, and we're hoping that Kincaid and Laporta can do that this year because I think they'll get the immediate chances at opportunities. And they're both in really, really good offenses. But the usual path we've seen for some of these rookie tight ends that have helped us in fantasy has been like the Pat Freiermuth path. We saw that with Chig Okonkwo last year, where guys end up getting more and more work as the season moves along, and you're able to put them in your lineup, week 8 on or something like that. So Mayer, I see as a guy like that. I wouldn't want to start him week 1, but I think he might be the kind of guy that, hey, week 6, he's added in a lot of home leagues as a waiver wire ad, and he, is able to kind of make his mark on the offense as the season moves along. I mean, Bradley, you're a big Notre Dame guy. You like Mayer. Maybe you could talk about his profile, and he's the real deal. I mean, he's
the real
talented tight end, very talented.
He's a more complete tight end. Like Dalton Kincaid, we like for fantasy earlier because he's just going to catch passes. But Mayer is he's the real deal when it comes to pass blocking, when it comes to receiving. He was the number 1 receiving option for the Irish the last couple of years, and teams had trouble covering him. And we look, I remember the first time I watched some Michael Mayer film. I'm like, wow, this guy is actually like, he's playing really well. Like he's getting open. He's obviously being the number 1 read for the Irish. So I'm big on Michael Mayer in Dynasty, but for this year in redraft, it's not someone that I'm taking early. And as Theo mentioned, he's not going early. So you don't have to worry about price really for a player like Michael Mayer. And if you've got some Indy Vegas, which is probably going to be under rostered from a correlation side, that could be a differentiator when it comes to a late round play, especially at the tight end position.
I have too much Vegas Indianapolis on underdog, Bradley. It's it's gotten to be a thing.
I don't think it's very common, Theo.
I have a ton of Anthony Richardson on underdog, and I've stacked him with guys like Pierce. And then during the Jonathan Taylor fall, where he's fallen to the 3rd round, I've taken him in the 3rd, then gone Anthony Richardson with Alec Pierce, and then and I've actually gone 17th round Mayer with 18th round Jimmy Garoppolo a few times as like a super cheap way to get that correlation with like Jacoby Myers maybe. So I have a little too much of that. It's I gotta pivot off that.
I've been drafting a lot of Jacoby Myers. He's going as wide receiver 58 on some sites. He went at wide receiver 50 in this draft. He should be closer to like wide receiver 36 or so. I think he's like a low end wide receiver 3, high end wide receiver 4. And so he's definitely priced down given the concerns that the public has with the Vegas Raiders with Jimmy Garoppolo. There could be implosion. I mean, there's even been some chatter about, could Aiden O'Connell get a couple starts at the end of the season? You talk to Billy. Billy knows that Jimmy Garoppolo isn't that good of a quarterback, and he was very much a scheme, get it out quickly. When he was put under pressure, he would throw interceptions or throw it high. It was not a player that a team would build around. And so we have concerns about the Raiders. I think the discount is too much, though, for Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, I like Jacoby Myers. And I think that if anything happens with Renfro, Myers is going to see his ADP go way up. They certainly gave him a contract There goes Michael Mayer right there in the 14th. So I guess the 15th,
Wow.
I was off by a round.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm glad that Rondale Moore was taken because I really wanted to take him there, but I probably should not have. So I have a few guys I like here, but I think a chance to lean into Miami a little bit with Jeff Wilson. This is a pick I like to make. There's
you
some
were going
other
to take Jeff Wilson last round, so
yeah, and there's
for
some
him to
wide
last this far.
receivers. Yeah, there's a bunch of wide receivers and running backs I like right here. Again, I'm done at tight end unless an exceptional value presents itself. But I think it's Jeff Wilson, and hopefully some of these other guys I like come back to me in the 15th.
Yeah, there's been a lot of purple coming off the board between my from my last pick. Juwan Johnson, Irv Smith, you got Luke Musgrave, we've mentioned earlier in the podcast. Jake Ferguson goes off at tight end 22 for the Dallas Cowboys. Then my boy Tyler Conklin goes off. I was hoping Conklin or Henry or my stack of Dawson Knox. I was hoping Dawson Knox would come back. No. Hayden Hurst. No. Michael Mayer. No. Trey McBride goes off as well. There's been a strong tight end run, but this is, I feel like they're all a similar tiered guys. And right now I'm like, oh God, there's some ugly tight ends here that I got to pick from, or I just keep punting it and then it's disgusting. So,
well, that's the problem with waiting on tight end. And I feel like when you take an earlier tight end in this sort of tournament, it makes you not have to kind of push purple when the run comes,
right.
And you can kind of pick your spots a little bit better. But, it is what it is. You can make up for tight ends with volume. There's still, a few tight ends that I'm very much interested in that are available.
Yeah, I don't want to miss out on tight ends, and Isaiah Likely is a player that we liked his college production. He was one of the top receiving PFF grade tight ends. And if anything happens to Mark Andrews, we've seen Isaiah Likely step in, and maybe it is leaning into the wide receivers, but there are questions about the wide receivers as well. So we'll see if Isaiah Likely can pay off some ADP value there. And I'm back on the clock. Sheesh. Jeez Louise. Yeah, let's get another stack with no. We're gonna go with our tight end again, and that is we're high spike week guy Taysom Hill.
There you go. That's fine.
Yeah, I need some purple.
I mean, I think that ideally you would get Likely a little bit later, but I certainly think he's a great bet in best ball. Billy Muzio and I selected him when we did this a couple weeks back on First Class Fantasy when we did the same tournament. Likely got so many outs to weekly usage, so I'm into him. And if anything happens with one of the wide receivers, he could see work at wide out. If anything happens to Mark Andrews, you've got yourself a top 6 play at the position. So
right, I
like him a lot. And he had to produce what he did as a rookie. And then you get him as in the 15th round. I think he's more likely than not, Baltimore is going to have 2 tight ends finish inside the top 24. And I think there's a chance, even if Mark Andrews stays healthy the entire season, that Likely could finish like tight end 18. He's that good.
Yeah, this is a player that we like his profile. We like his outs. So it is a little early, but as you could see, I got annihilated on tight end here in rounds 13 and 14. So it is what it is.
So I'm going to go back to to running back. I
was about to say, I thought you were done with tight ends, Theo.
No, I'm done with tight end. I'm gonna take Tyjae Spears. I like him.
I like it.
And obviously he's a high end handcuff, but I think he could have weekly touches. He's a good player.
He is a player who I could see fitting really well with 0 RB builds, and for him to be this late, I mean,
yeah, it's a good value.
Easily outproduce Elijah Mitchell, a couple rounds earlier. You think that they're going to give Derrick Henry 350 carries again?
No, I think that the offense could be a little bit more diverse. I mean, they showed it with the Hopkins signing, and then what they did in the draft the previous season where they added, Treylon Burks, Chika Okonkwo. I mean, they've been trying to upgrade the skill position talent. I mean, they could have just not been goofy and kept A.J. Brown, and this would have been a moot conversation. But after they didn't want to pay A.J. for whatever reason, they've been going back to the well. So I think the offense could look a little different. And at the end of the day, Derrick Henry is 29 years old, and he has 1,750 carries, somewhere right around there. Bradley, correct me if I'm wrong. So he's got, easily the most carries of any active back in the NFL. He's ahead of Zeke. That's actually something I'd like to double check. Career carries, Zeke versus Derrick Henry. But I believe they would be the top two right now, Bradley. Is anybody else jump at you?
Yeah, I think those are the top two. I don't think the veteran backs of like Melvin Gordon or Latavius Murray got the volume earlier in their career that would match it. So,
yep.
I think that those are, and Kareem Hunt had his issues. I don't think Nick Chubb is quite there yet either.
No, Nick Chubb hasn't played long enough to have that.
Mm-mm. So I think the volume is there. Oh, I was going to take some wide receivers in those spots, but I decided to push it because there were enough wide receivers that I like. So hopefully some of those, like Marvin Mims, maybe I could have stacked with Mims, but I've already leaned in a lot to Denver here.
I have a ton of Mims. I think Mims is a great pick in this range. There's some wide receivers left for sure.
Oh yeah.
This is an interesting time in the draft. I think you see people trying to play catch up at certain positions. For me, I'm pretty much done at quarterback, done at tight end, and I can kind of paint it green and yellow for the rest of the way. Whereas some of these other teams, I think, are going to be looking to try to add those late quarterbacks and add those late tight ends.
Right. I'm all set at quarterback. I've got Wilson and Cousins and Josh Allen, of course. I'll probably be hammering a lot of running backs. I like Etienne. I like James Cook, the AJ Dillon, A-Chain, Allgeier. I all expect to ping pong, but to add a few more balls to the ping pong capability throughout the weeks. And I'm happy with how my wide receiver room is looking. So it's hammering the tight ends and running backs probably the rest of the way.
Yeah. And I have a number of guys in my queue. I'm kind of excited to see who lasts to me here. I've got to dodge a couple of these picks, but there's a number of guys I like.
Yeah, there are a few late valued players that could come back around. We saw Chuba Hubbard here. That was a player that I like. Running back 55 could easily outproduce. We already talked about him briefly, but Hubbard was a decent pass catcher last year. It was interesting because as a junior, I believe he played pretty well, but then he went back for his senior year, did not play very well, and then came out, was drafted, 4th, 5th round by Carolina, a day 3 pick, and has just been relegated behind, Christian McCaffrey, obviously, but even last year, it was Donta Foreman who was getting a lot of the work.
Yeah, I like Chuba. I think Chuba's interesting. I know that Raheem Blackshear, there's some people that like him in that camp as well. But it's, the whole idea that Miles Sanders' receiving upside is going to go way, way, way up with the team change. I don't know. I think it's more of I think they intend on throwing to him more than he did in Philly, but that's never really been his thing. Chuba Hubbard, I think, could build on what he did last year receiving wise. And apparently he's, put on some good weight this offseason. And I think he's interesting. We already see Sanders hurt. And if, that turns out to be something substantial, then that's going to look like fantastic value for Chuba.
Yeah, it's gonna be a weekly running back too, and that's why in some of these drafts it makes a lot of sense to push that running back too and just ping pong it week to week in these best ball tournaments. Get your anchor, get your hero, and then just fade or go 0 RB. I mean, the RotoViz guys won it a few years ago in this best ball tournament. I think it was Drico who won it using our 0 RB.
Connor Driscoll. He had a 0 RB build. There's been a couple of guys that have done well with the 0 RB build. It's, obviously you'd like to have a foundational piece at running back you can lean on. I know Pat Kerrane had the running back start last year when he won it. But like the FFPC, you have the tight end premium as well. So the where drafters are getting the best value from, I think there's kind of different ways to do your build, and different ways to kind of different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. There, as long as you draft the correct players in this sort of a format, anybody can win. Well, as long as you don't get jammed at wide receiver, Bradley. I think that's a tough position to make up for this year if you're trying to play catch up at wide out.
It is a tough position. I'm looking at PFF here, and Chuba Hubbard last year, among running backs with at least 15 targets, he was running back 10 in terms of yards per route run.
I like the Jalen Hyatt pick right there.
Ooh.
I'm actually going to lean into... This is a difficult decision for me. But I think I need to lean back into correlation, and I'm going to go with Chase Brown and hope that a couple of these other players wrap back to me in the 17th. I think Chase Brown is the cuff in Cincinnati. I think he's got a little bit of juice. Was a very high volume guy at Illinois, and I get him here in the 16th. So beggars can't be choosers when we're trying to catch up at running back.
Well, we know it's not Travion Williams, and we know it's not going to be Chris Evans. Both players kind of fizzled last year. It was disappointing. I'm not a huge Chase Brown guy, but
neither am I.
I mean,
but it's a roster. Yeah, it's a roster thing. And I do think that if Mixon were to go down tomorrow, knock on wood, obviously we don't hope for
they probably
injuries,
go free agent.
100%. But whether or not that would be a Leonard Fournette versus a Mike Davis, I think Chase Brown, they have a certain level of comfort with Chase Brown based on how they ignored the running back position this season. So Samaje Perine was a guy that they liked, that they used substantially, and he left, went to Denver, and Chase Brown was the only one they've added. So I think they like him a little bit, and I know there's some sharp money on him in Dynasty and also in Bestball in some of these FFPC builds. Billy's a big Chase Brown guy.
Well, we can't get them all right here, Theo. But yeah, Chase Brown might be
again. I'm not pounding the table for Chase Brown, but I do think he has outs.
And he fits your build too. So, you have the pathway to running back 2 on this team. You mentioned Samaje Perine's not there. So we'll see if Chase Brown can carve out a nice little role. We will see. But I'm going to go with some wide receiver correlation. I've gone Minnesota already, so I'm going to draft Jaden Reed of Green Bay round 16. Yeah, he fits well, and I'm just I as the Green Bay guy, right? This is a player who's going to probably be the wide receiver 2 on the team behind Christian Watson. He was pushed up to the round 2. I didn't have him as a round 2 guy, maybe round 3 or 4, but the Packers drafted him for the slot role. And if Jordan Love is leaning on guys, it's going to be Jaden Reed, it's going to be Christian Watson, and maybe some of the tight ends as the pass catchers, if not the running back.
Yeah, I like that play right there. I like him. So, I mean, we like the talent, and, you've leaned into the correlation. So I think that's a fine pick here.
All right. I think I'm also going to go with running back Kendre Miller here in round 17.
Okay. Another pick. I think that's a great value. He's banged up, but it's not something like incredibly substantial. So I think you did well with that pick.
I think it was a value pick, and I need another ping pong ability here. And they drafted him round 3. So for him to fit with an Etienne Cook, Dillon, A-Chain, Allgeier build, I think it's just another player that could ping pong, and he has pathway to make my starting lineup, and also some correlation with Taysom Hill. So there you go.
And I'm coming up here, and now I don't feel kind of as pressed at running back. Again, I have a lot of potential handcuffs, which is kind of annoying. and less so with kind of weekly usage guys. But hopefully I'll get enough out of those guys because I like a couple of these wide receivers.
Yeah, there's plenty of wide receivers that are still on the board that can be producing fantasy usable weeks.
Well, I went with you're a Michigan guy in the state you live in. I went with a Michigan guy and Donovan Peoples-Jones there. I like him a lot in this best ball settings.
I'm not a DPJ guy, but I mean, he's round 17 at this point and probably is still going to hold off Cedric Tillman for that wide receiver 2-3 spot. So we'll see. Cedric Tillman did get a lot of hype pre-draft. One of the draft rankers had him as a borderline first round pick, but Donovan Peoples-Jones has been in the system. He's got the starting role. He's going to play outside. He's had a nice little floor. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is a player that we can be leaning into here this late. So Theo is he's already drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones. I had in the queue KJ Osborne and Ty Chandler. So those are some Minnesota players that I was considering, but unfortunately with my Kendre Miller selection, they're no longer on the board. That's okay though. We've gone some Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. So right now my build is a 3-6 5-3 build. I actually have more running backs than wide receivers at this point, which is not something I'm used to. Usually it's a start 3 wide receiver, got to push wide receiver, but that was not the case for this draft. I was not hammering it after the Gabe Davis pick, which correlated or stacked with Josh Allen.
So I feel like this is kind of an open pick for me coming up, Bradley.
Yeah.
And I like a few of these guys. I like actually a handful of these guys. I think some of these, there's definitely a lot of values in the 17th and 18th rounds this year for whatever reason. There's definitely a number of wide receivers I think are very appealing.
Absolutely. I'm surprised that KJ Osborne was still there. You're a Tank Dell guy. So Tank Dell is available there.
And Bradley, Hodgins. we took Tank Dell in our build, didn't we?
You convinced me. You talked me into some Tank Dell.
And you like the way he looked in that preseason game, right, Bradley?
I mean, you can't hate it. You can't hate how he looked. He looked like he was running away from everybody. This is
I encourage you to go back and watch. Bradley made fun of me. He didn't like the Tank Dell pick, but he capitulated and we made the selection together. So that was a lot of fun.
And I think that was a round 20 pick, wasn't it?
That was a 20 Tank Dell, so we got good ADP value on that. That was back in the good old days when you get him in the 20th.
Yeah, so Tank Dell here going in the 17th. This is the preseason. Finally, we're getting a view of these day 2 wide receivers. And Tank Dell has as good of a shot as any to be a fantasy producer on this Houston Texans team. It's Nico Collins, it's Robert Woods, it's Tank Dell. No one blows you away. I'm not a Nico Collins guy. I don't think he's particularly good. Maybe this is the bias against Michigan wide receivers, why I'm not a big fan of DPJ, Nico Collins. I think that there's just massively limited upside, but at the same time, maybe it was the quarterback who was holding back Nico Collins. That's the possible narrative. Year 3, year 4 breakout for Nico Collins, possibly in Houston. CJ Stroud played well in Ohio State, but does Houston have enough pieces to be competitive? I'm not as convinced, but I think Houston believes they're going to be competitive because they traded their first round pick from this past year to acquire defensive linemen, after the CJ Stroud pick.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it's interesting. I think they believe in a couple of the guys they have, and maybe it's a little bit misguided, but I think that Collins and Dell are going to have every opportunity, and which one delivers, that remains to be seen. But I think that like Nico Collins is definitely a guy that we've liked the talent for, and certainly he's been kind of disappointing in the touchdown department. But other than that, like he looks the part. He's a big physical wide receiver. And Bradley, back in the day, guys were allowed to break out in year 3. Now everybody wants them to do it much earlier. So I'm in on Nico Collins. He's actually my most rostered underdog guy right now, which is surprising. It wasn't like I was like, I have to get Nico every draft. It's just been like he seems to go in that portion of the draft where wide receiver is drying up, and I think he's got a clear role and so a little bit of talent to him.
Yeah, he's got a clear role. He's probably going to be the wide receiver 1 on that team, playing on the outside. So in a team that we expect to not be very good and playing from behind, he's going to get a high average depth of target. No Brandon Cooks anymore. He was a wide receiver 36 in PFF receiving grade last year. So he was respectable. It was fine. Like there's nothing to scoff at. Same thing with yards per route run. He was back end wide receiver 3, high end wide receiver 4. So we'll see if the Texans are good enough to give him the efficiency to pay off at that spot. But, you can't really argue with how late Nico Collins has been going, although he has been steamed up in some places.
Yeah. No, I'm in on him. I think that Houston, I also think Dalton Schultz is a little bit interesting. I don't love him, but I think he's going to have very predictable volume and targets every week. He could be kind of like this year's Tyler Higbee. Again, he's very unexciting, but I think he could potentially pay off.
I mean, they paid him a decent amount of money. I think it was a 1-year, $8 million deal or $12 million. They paid him a decent amount. And last year, Schultz was an 18-20% target share guy, used in the red zone, not super athletic, but the Houston Texans want some safety valves for CJ Stroud as well. And that's why they brought in the likes of Devin Singletary. They brought in Dalton Schultz. So these are veteran guys who are going to bail out Stroud if he gets in trouble.
I love my Darius Slayton pick in the 18th round.
Oh yeah,
that's
he's
one
a
of my guys.
Guy for sure.
That's one of my guys. I think he should be getting drafted a little bit earlier. I think there's a path that he leads all Giants wide receivers in points this year, and he's so cheap. He had many usable weeks last year, Bradley.
Oh, for sure. He was a player that you take for the spike week. It says high average depth of target. He can break off a long touchdown. He's got nice speed. He was a player that was kind of just back when Kenny Golladay was on the team. It was kind of a head scratcher because Slayton and Golladay played the same position. Look who's still on the team. It's Darius Slayton.
Somebody's got to score wide receiver points in New York as well, Bradley. So we're coming down to the nitty gritty here.
We are.
This is one of your last. These are 2 of your last 3 picks.
I know. And I'm thinking about hitting the wide receiver room again because there's not a lot of tight ends that excite me at this point. Yeah, it's gross pickings, but we're gonna go with a high spike week wide receiver as well. He's been getting some hype, and that is Mecole Hardman.
I like that. Billy takes him every single Bestball draft. I've been taking him a ton in the 18th round of underdog drafts. I think he's super fun.
Oh, he's a lot of fun. He's a player that they've already worked some gadget plays for. He can do some rushing. You can't argue with the 4.2 speed that Hardman has. They signed him in free agency, and they've got plans for him. So I don't hate it. Do we have any other tight ends that are interesting? I'm just sorting by tight end.
I think the tight end that I think is super interesting to take at the end of drafts is Noah Gray, because he saw a lot of work last year. We also have the fact that Kansas City is in 12 a lot. They have two double tight ends, on the field, sometimes 3 tight ends to kind of protect Kelsey and to make defenses, have to adjust for it, get Kelsey fantastic matchups. But Noah Gray is entering year 3. Noah Gray, produced last year. We took him in the last round of the Pros versus Joes, where we got kind of caught at tight end and we're playing catch up in like a 4 tight end build. But he's been kind of like my break glass in case of emergency. I need a tight end super late. And then from a best ball setting, I think Darnell Washington, Bradley, in the 20th round has been an interesting guy because nobody's drafting him. He's very, very talented in terms of his athleticism, and I wonder if they're going to give him some kind of manufactured looks this year. There goes Josh Kelly. I would have liked to have had him.
I went Cole Turner at that spot. I think that Logan Thomas has been dealing with injuries for a long time. Cole Turner has been getting a lot of run. And if Washington, Eric Bieniemy uses the tight end position in a similar way as how he did Kelsey, like obviously Turner's no Kelsey, but if there's a scheme in place for a player like Turner to step up, I mean, Turner was a 5th round pick, decent athleticism, 73rd percentile agility, still 23, second year in the system. I mean, Logan Thomas is trending down, Cole Turner probably trending up.
Yeah, I mean, Cole Turner looked good the other night.
So
I'm going to go with a little bit of Kyron Williams here. I've taken Zach Evans and as well in some of these best ball formats, but
go Irish.
I'm going to go with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish running back Kyron Williams, who we wanted to be a thing last year, but I think he just couldn't get healthy.
Yeah, that was week 1, right, on a kick return where it's good that the running backs once again are handling punts and kick returns, but if they get hurt, then that can derail things for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I would have liked to have had Josh Kelly, though. Josh Kelly was just sitting there for me. I thought I was going to get lucky.
You think Isaiah Spiller or Josh Kelly this year?
I think it's Josh Kelly. I personally think it's Josh Kelly.
Josh Kelly, I'm struggling because he had never been a thing, but I also saw last year, Isaiah Spiller taken in the 4th round, and people were saying, oh, he's going to be a day 2 pick. Oh, he's going to be the complement to. I had a lot of Isaiah Spiller, partly because I was so heavy on the Chargers-Rams game in week 17 last year, and I just wanted pieces of it. But also, like, if Eckler goes down, Spiller's skill set would fit better, but he didn't become a thing. So I don't know how to nuance the situation. I think it's gross, but
yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I mean, at the end of the day, they've also been one of these teams that's been kind of like rumored to sign all these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it just never happens. Like, that's always been kind of the argument against Josh Kelly is, oh, they're going to sign Leonard Fournette. Well, the dominoes have already started to fall. And right now it's like, if he can dodge Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette, I think Josh Kelly's the handcuff.
Was that quarterback 4? Team 11 has gone 4 quarterbacks, Theo.
I have not been watching like the actual board because it's on there. But yeah, that's a little bit interesting. I think that the 4 quarterback build, though, is kind of necessary when you take Kyler Murray. Actually, not really, because he has Geno and he has Goff.
Goff is the thing.
Will Levis pick is just, I think it's a waste. I think Will Levis is not even going to be the backup. I think it's going to be Malik Willis. I think Will Levis sucks.
Sorry, Cody.
Yeah, sorry, Cody, if you're watching this one, but I think Will Levis and Cody's really, really good with his quarterbacks, but he doesn't get them all right. Nobody can. Quarterback's a tough position to prepare for.
Yeah, to get right for sure.
Anyway, I'm not sure which way I'm going to go in the 20th round here. I actually had Allen Robinson as a way to kind of correlate with my George Pickens pick earlier.
Yes.
But that went away now. So I'm actually not 100% sure which way I'm going to go. Allen Robinson has been kind of like one I've leaned on.
Well, there's a late round wide receiver that I want to just smash really hard, and I hope he comes back around to me. That would correlate, but we'll see if he can come to me. I mean, we're not here sniping in 20 rounds, but
I'm absolutely going to take Justin Ross if he's there.
That's fair.
It's a fun story, and he's a player with a lot of talent that has had very unfortunate injuries.
He got hurt again today.
I mean, Bradley, your Khalil Shakir is just sitting there for the 20th round. Is a layup pick for you.
I know. Well, Deontay Hardy already went off. I'm kicking myself.
I know you're a big Deontay Hardy guy, but Shakir, I think, he's a similar bet to Hardy.
You heard that that it's actually going to be Andy Isabella, right? He's been lighting up Bill's camp.
I mean, we'll believe it when we see it. It's nice to see that Andy Isabella has picked up with somebody, but I don't know. We'll see. It's all about Dalton Kincaid. That's what it's all about. Getting as many targets to Kincaid as possible in the 11.5 personnel.
That sounds well, not great for me because you took him from me, but it's okay. I'll forgive you, Theo.
I could lean back into Cincinnati. I think Yoshivas looks pretty good as a spike week guy, and nobody has him in this tournament. But I'm going to go, I think, I'm going to take Justin Ross. It's the 20th round. Let's take a bet.
Trenton Irwin was hitting some spike weeks last year, which is gross, but
yeah, you're right. But again, I already have plenty of Cincinnati correlation. I don't want to over-correlate it, so I'm going to go Justin Ross.
Yeah, go Justin Ross. There you
Justin
go.
Ross with the chef's kiss.
There we
go. There we go, Bradley.
Oh, beautiful. Love it.
All right, you got to end the draft for us. Who's going to be the $200,000 play in the 20th?
Yeah, he's still there. We'll see.
I mean, one pick, unless this guy wants to snipe you. He sniped me last round.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
And it's funny. I actually had Mac Hollins hat tip to Team 4. Mac Hollins I had in there with a little bit of Kyle Pitts correlation. He's the clear number 4 target on that team right now, I think. Unless Cordero sees an outsized number of targets as like a gadget guy. Mac Hollins, he looks good, Bradley. He looks like a beast.
Yeah, Mac Hollins could very well be the wide receiver 2 on that team, and he had some spike weeks last year. So this is at round 20 play. I mean, we don't love the volume of Atlanta, but give me the wide receiver 2 on a team in round 20.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
we're drafting Deontay Hardy, Tutu Atwells of the world, right?
The 19th round pick and 20. Oh, there you go. So you get your nice little play. 19th and 20th round there were a little bit tilting to me. I figured I'd get. I didn't think I would be drafting Kyron Williams. I've usually been taking Keontae Ingram in here, but I have way too much Keontae Ingram, so I went with a little Kyron. We'll see if that one pays off. In retrospect, I wish I could have changed that to Keontae. And then that Justin Ross pick, there's a chance that that's a 0. Whereas Mac Hollins, I don't think would be a 0. And I know Khalil Shakir would not be a 0. But Justin Ross definitely has the most potential upside of any of these wide receivers. But FFPC drafters are getting sharper and sharper. It's really hard to kind of pull any sort of fast ones in like the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. So I really like my Donovan Peoples-Jones and Darius Slayton picks. I think those kind of built on my strength. And this was fun, Bradley. I appreciate it. Maybe we'll get one more in before the season starts.
This is great. Yeah, I was able to get Tyquan Thornton round 20. So as a spike week candidate, correlate with Buffalo. That's maybe he's spiking at the end of the season. Round 2 pick, 4.2 speed once again. So I've been leaning into those late ones. Theo, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think you crushed it in the draft. I got snuffed on tight end a little bit. I think your Dalton Kincaid pick doomed me at tight end for the rest of the draft, but here we are. It's okay. It's okay. This has been a lot of fun, Theo, and I know you've got it was the right price for Kincaid, so there's no hard feelings on that front at all, but it's
listen, you got me on A-Chain. We got each other on the snipe, so
we did.
We're good to go. But this was a lot of fun. I always like drafting with you, but I think we can squeeze one more in, Bradley, before the season starts.
I think we'll be able to do it. Well, everyone, check out FFPC. Use the promo code Underworld, $25 off your first team when you sign up there. Theo, the people are going to follow you on Twitter at the OG Fantasy, also director of content at Roto Underworld, Player Profiler. Any other plugs you want to make before we call it a night?
Yeah, definitely watch press coverage this Friday. Should be Curtis Patrick of RotoViz. Check out First Class Fantasy. Billy Muzio and I are going to have Chad Schroeder, who's probably the best, the most successful and probably the best fantasy player to ever play fantasy. He's won everything. He's going to be on with Darren Armani, aka Fantasy Mojo, who provides some of the best ADP content available in all of fantasy. So those two guys, it's going to be a really awesome double guest. I'm recording a Man versus Machine at some point this week. And yeah, we have a lot of very cool stuff. Look for next week. Bradley and I will both be competing in the Deep End Invitational. That's put together by Mike Shope and Adam Krautwurst of the Deep End. I've had a chance to compete in it for 2 years now. It's really difficult. It's very fun. They have a lot of great high stakes players against a lot of really good analysts. And a couple of really, really big names in the industry will be competing in that one. And we're going to have 4 shows next week right here on Player Profiler YouTube, where you're going to get a chance to watch those drafts. And we'll also be drafting a couple of these main events. If you like watching these drafts, tune in tomorrow evening, where Adam Krautwurst and Mike Shope, they're going to be drafting in an FFPC main event. They're actually drafting it at 10 o'clock tonight, but they don't want to get sniped at that kind of numbers. So there'll be a couple more live draft announcements if you like this show, and we hope you guys crush your leagues. Definitely consider purchasing our all-in package and our draft kit.
All right. This has been great, Theo. Until next time, everyone, good luck in the best ball streets.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All-In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.